Good morning, peoples. I am going to do something a little different. By request, I was asked to assess MetaPlanet. For those of you that haven't heard of it, I'm sure some have. It is a MSTR-like Japanese company working well, I shouldn't say it's well known in Japan. Some of the people behind it are well known. So the idea is to go out and use corporate treasuries and do some other businesses, and I'll get into all of that, um, in order to build treasury wealth and to buy BTC with that treasury wealth. Almost the exact model of Michael Saylor's BTC, or Michael Saylor's microstrategy that is now strategy. So there's a listing in the US on over the counter, MTPLF. Otherwise, you have to have access to the Japanese markets to go buy it in Japan. Its symbol is MTPLF, Michael, Thomas, Paul, Larry, Frank. Okay. With a market cap of 5.74 billion. When I looked at the chart, I'm sure some of you have been trading this thing because it's volatile as all you know what. But it could be, if you believe in BTC and believe in what Michael Saylor's doing, this is a close emulation. So let's jump into it. MetaPlanet is a publicly traded Japanese company that has undergone a strategic shift toward focusing on Bitcoin. It operates as a Bitcoin treasury, acquiring and managing Bitcoin as its principal asset. Beyond its Bitcoin activities, MetaPlanet also engages in other businesses, including hotel management, has a big hotel in Tokyo, the capital of Japan, real estate, I'm not so sure, but I got some comments on that, and investments in Web3, blockchain, and NFT related technologies. So let's talk about the Bitcoin treasury business. MetaPlanet's primary focus is accumulating Bitcoin as its treasury reserve asset. Exactly what I was saying about what Michael Saylor accomplished with MicroStrategy that's now strategy. It leverages capital markets, right? You got to get the capital when you're starting from somewhere and then go stick it into Bitcoin and have your value go up based on the underlying asset moving up. It leverages capital markets to enhance shareholder value by acquiring and managing Bitcoin. The company has raised capital for Bitcoin purchases through methods like issuing convertible bonds and preferred stock. So it hasn't had too difficult a time of raising capital, people. I'll just say right now, one of the concerns, and I'm not savvy enough of a bond guy to know what the impact of the bond issues that Japan is going through right now in the last several months and the US faces. I understand how bonds work and I understand what the problem both of the countries face, but I don't know what that might lead to on them being able to capitalize this company in the future. They apparently just bought a new set on June 2nd. I'll show you my data there and purchased another 1,088, 1,080 Bitcoin on June 2nd. So I haven't seen a let up in that, but just a thought. If somebody is very knowledgeable of treasuries and the bond market in general, I understand why we have the impact we have, and I understand why Japan's impact is even worse. They had sort of a yen carry trade where super low interest, and then all of a sudden the market demanded more. The US has gotten in a situation, and this is where Japan was already ahead of them, where their debt to GDP is high. Well, that's not so bad when interest rates are 0.5%, 1%, 1 or 2%. But now, when the 30-year treasuries, 10-year treasuries, when you're up in the 5 or 6%, just a single percentage point, we're now saying that the interest on our debt alone is more than our military spending. So we're talking a trillion plus just for the US to finance its outstanding debt. And we have to roll over $7.2 trillion and resell treasuries, roll them over. And then we have an additional 2 trillion of, what's the word I'm looking for? Overspend, right? Where we're above our budget. And that together is about 9.2 trillion coming up. I think it's September, October, I'm not sure exactly. And that has to get refinanced. Well, it gets refinanced at rate. Who's going to buy that, right? Today, Japan is one of the largest holders of US Treasury. By far, China used to be, but they're smartly getting rid of their holdings of US dollars. I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar, but in the world, there are more US dollars outside the US than there are in the US. Always as a reserve currency and a popular stable currency. Well, that's being challenged at the current debt levels. So that is causing rates, the ability to sell. People demand more. They want more interest for the risk associated, whereas it was a non-risk asset. You saw where our credit rating on Moody's, we lost our final AAA rating on some stuff. So I'm going to leave that right now. Didn't mean to dive that deep, but just wanted you to know some of the things I did know. All right. So the hotel business, manage a hotel in Tokyo, Japan, the capital. Real estate, the company's involved in the acquisition, holding, and disposal of real estate and real estate trust beneficiary rights. I don't know. I need to see the revenue. Web3, blockchain, and NFT token investment. Invested in business related to decentralized technologies, including Web3 platforms, companies, and communities. And not unlike what MicroStrategy, they're trying to develop some products, tools, software around the crypto industry, as opposed to going out and knocking heads with Microsoft that used to be what MicroStrategy did. So they've changed their whole business of what software and what ecosphere they're going to develop software. And consulting, MetaPlanet provides consulting services to help organizations adopt Bitcoin as a reserve asset. So now you're saying, hey, it would just be, I'm surprised Michael Strategy, boy, Michael Saylor hasn't tried to hire himself out. I do know what he's doing. I know that he calls on people like Michael Dell. He calls on the Amazon CEO, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. So he's trying to get in those circles. He's holding conferences. He's doing things like, look, guys, you guys need to move into this. Look what I did as a much smaller company and look at my wealth grow. You guys are parking billions, Apple's another one. You guys are parking billions. You should be considering, I'm doing 100%. Maybe you ought to do 10, baby steps. And so naturally, it benefits a Michael Saylor. It would benefit a company like MetaPlanet if other people do it. I mean, that's a definition of a Ponzi scheme, and I'm not implying it's a Ponzi scheme because I don't really feel BTC is. I'm not so sure some of the altcoins and some of the meme coins aren't. There are some legitimate technologies that justify some of the altcoins, but a plethora of them to me are just a Ponzi scheme. No offense. Okay, but I don't claim to be a guru of crypto. I'm well read on BTC and I'm well read on altcoins, but that doesn't mean I know everything or an awful lot. Okay, so MetaPlanet has achieved the largest Bitcoin focused capital raise in Asian equity market history. I think I read, I'll have to double check this, that they're the 15th largest holder of BTC now. But I'm going to show you all the stats in a deep dive on MetaPlanet. This isn't just a cursory. And let me give you a word of caution, guys. This kind of stuff attracts risk, right? You look at this chart, it was $2, 6 or 8 months ago. It's been 16, it's back at 8. So don't just go out here and think you're going to get rich. But if you believe and you're willing to be patient, this has the earmarkings right now of something that could really grow and grow. And obviously, the cheaper you get in and the longer you hold, if that works out. But I'd be the last to tell you, go in and put all your money and throw it in this thing and then have it drop down 80% and be crushed for 6 months. You know, anything can happen. So if you're risk adverse, don't invest in this. If you want to throw a little bit of money in and test the water, that's fine. But don't say, hey, that guy on YouTube said that this could do that. You know, I'm not a financial advisor, but I do like to show you things that are of interest, and people were asking me. Okay. So let's take a look here. Got a lot of data for you guys. Come on. All right. So I built a balance sheet, if you will, on MetaPlanet. If you want to go see MetaPlanet analytics and data, you have to go out to the Japanese website, and I hope you can read Japanese characters. No, I'm kidding. There's a English translation. But a lot of the charts and a lot of the data will say, do you want it in yen? You know, click here. If you want it in dollars, click here. So just be warned. But there is a lot of data out there. Okay, so that's where my data comes from. So I didn't go make it up. I didn't, you know, get it from another YouTuber. So the BTC NAV is now 62.45x on the symbol for MetaPlanet market cap since adopting the BTC standard. And I'll get into this more. They now own 0.11700910. Okay, so let's go through. So I had it all the way. I looked the other day and it was through May. And I just came on here to do the video and thought, well, I better go back out and double check my numbers. And they had just posted a June 2nd purchase, right? So they went 1,188 more BTC. So it's in the June category, but the physical purchase was done on June 2. So guys, down where, oh, I did that over here. BTC buys. Okay. So this is from their website. I really need to shrink this down further so you can see more. Okay. So they did, here's your average. So on June 2nd, they bought 1,088 at a price of 107,771. So I think it's 105,800 when I started, you know, when I started assembling the data for the video. Acquisition cost, BTC holdings are now 8,888 Bitcoin. So you can see their entire history of purchasing Bitcoin. They've been in existence for about 13 months, guys. So let's go back over here. So that's why you see, and there's some months skipped in here. Maybe there wasn't activity. So they started out in April of 24 with 97 Bitcoin. In June, 2 months later, they had 141. In September, 399. In December, 1,762. 4046, right? 7,800 2 months later. Well, the 2nd of June, they added 1,088. And so, in order to do the math to say what are their BTC assets worth, I just plug in the price at the time that they made the purchase, 105,468. So that gets them, and then I just subtract out the other numbers, right? It's 937 399,584. But it's just easier to deal with 937 million. There's your debt. Debt's still at the same level. There's your net assets. Liability to asset ratio. There's a couple here that I didn't finish calculating for June. It doesn't matter. Okay. But you see the trend. So this one is kind of key. BTC price needed for their assets, which is what you don't want, right? So what you're trying to look at is if BTC crashes, they could reach a point that everything they own is less than what their debt and liabilities are. But look how low they've gotten. When they started purchasing, in June it was 44,000. In September they got it down to 34. Then it was 40. Then it was 7. Look at this. So this is only going to be, you know, probably 1,200 or something. I didn't do the math. But you can see that they got a lot of room. What about the drawdown needed for assets, right? So they'd have to lose 98% of value. It's probably 98.7 or 98.8 now. But look at this. So they went from saying, hey, if we have a drawdown, just 27% in our, you know, we're going to be hurting. So their room of safety, their margin of safety. So this is a chart right from their site. And in the previous month, this was 0.01 something another, right? So it got from 010 to 011. And the idea here is per 1,000 shares. So when you buy 1,000 shares of MetaPlanet, how much Bitcoin do you own? Because we know how many they own. They own 8,888, and we know how many shares there are. So that they can give you this stat. Well, guys, that number is more than 100x, right? I mean, they started down here. It's very possible. I looked up a Japanese, I wouldn't call him a blogger. He's sort of a financial analyst. And I think he's on, I got the data on X. I was going to copy it, but you know, I spent a lot of time on this already, and I doubt that I'll get that many views on it. But I like to try to give back when people ask me to do something. I can't always do it. So don't think if you ask me to do a video on this, I'll run out and do it. If I think it's going to get 200 views, I'm not going to do it. You know, if it's not going to get me 1,000 views, it's sort of a waste of my time. I put in way too many hours to do this, and I can make more money. Quite honestly, I don't do it for the money. You know, you don't see me out panhandling, saying, "Hey, can you buy me a coffee?" And if you want to donate, hey, I think I have a PayPal thing on there, but I never ask for that. That's not what I'm in this game for. I have plenty of money. I appreciate more positive comments, and I absolutely hate the trolls. You know, now my patience has got when somebody says, "Hey, you ramble on. You can't even finish a sentence. You can't do that." I used to give them like the benefit of the doubt a couple times. Now you're just blocked from commenting on the channel. I don't care. I really don't care. So be nice. Say, hey, you know, you kind of were long winded on that. I didn't understand. Can you re explain that? But, you know, these guys are sitting in their parents' basement, you know, behind the computer. They don't ever face you. And they just say and do stupid things. You know, be polite. You know, people tell me, hey, you made a mistake in that. I think you typed in the wrong number. I love that. My gosh, we all do that. I do typos all the time. I know how to spell it, but I didn't learn the formal typing in typing class, and I use a bunch of my fingers, and I always type. When I say watching, WATCH, I always type in WATHC. It's the way my fingers hit it, but I know every time to go back and correct it. But some of the mistakes I made you know, I didn't know about it. All right, guys. So what's important here? Here's a couple charts, and then I'm going to wrap this up. So MTPLF, the symbol, is already up over 8x at one point. So here, right, it comes out. Oh, sorry. This chart, you have to do this a few different ways to make it reasonable. When I did it the other way, when I show them and then I show MicroStrategy, so they're the big one on top and MicroStrategy, it doesn't work because MicroStrategy has such a long history. And the percentages just is hard to read. So here's a 5-year chart of MicroStrategy. So you see at one point they're at 0% relative to whatever they were. That could be $10, $8. And then they went up tenfold, pull back, trotted along here in 22, 23, 24. Now we start some momentum. I mean, this is 500%. Well, they've reached 4,000. What does that tell you right there? That's an 8x on that peak, right? From 500% to 4,000. That's an 800% increase. So you're starting to see some things here. These guys back in 2024, MetaPlanet was, you know, you can go look at it right over here. This is, say, the $2 range. So they went up 6 times. Well, 7 times. You can't read this. 7 times, maybe 8 times, right? from 0 to say 800. Well, that's exactly what you see. You see $2 to $16, and now they're pulling back. So to me, this I there's nothing here that tells me what it's going to do. Volume coming in is what ultimately is going to drive it up. Volume is stable now. So until volume picks up, it's not going to move probably, which could be any day. It's probably going to trade between 6 and 8 right here for a little bit, or 6 and 8.5, or 7 and 8.5. But as soon as it decides, or as soon as volume comes in, or if Bitcoin goes and breaks out 110 again, 111, and looks like it's going to run, it's going to take this thing up. But it's hanging in that 106, high 105s, which is kind of support. But this very much is going to trade like MSTR, just with not as much Bitcoin, obviously. So, guys, I just wanted to point out something else because people were asking me, Bruce, I don't understand it. Is this thing legit? Is it a Ponzi scheme? How do you go about assessing it? Well, so you got my info now. You know everything I know now. Well, most of that on MTPLF. Hopefully, this is helpful. Tell me if I missed something in the comments. Um, Subscribe, like, comment. Again, I tried to give you a warning up front. Guys, if I come out and talk about something, so there's one more thing. I forgot about this. I think I have it down here. Oh, it's right up here. So there's some Japanese coverage. I think he was on X. I didn't copy it. Is saying he expects their BTC holdings, Japanese guy, to double every 3 months. So to 0.04, remember we're at 0.011. So here we are in June. So in September, they could be 0.02. Then in December, they could be 0.04. So taking a potential price increase in BTC, I think you see numbers like 160 to 180. I personally think by year end it could happen before and it could retrace a little bit. But I think if it goes and breaks out and runs back, it's likely for BTC to go to 173, 175. If it were to do that, this will trade depending on this 0.04, at least the math behind it. So if it doesn't run, the best you're probably going to get if Bitcoin hangs around here is maybe 110, 115. Maybe it settles at $13. But it could go to $80 and be a 10x. Could. What would that take? $180. It would take all that doubling, two more doubles of their purchases of Bitcoin and continue on unabated, right? The risk in these things, again, I brought up that is there bond risk that would impact what these guys are trying to do. And that I can't tell you because I do know that the US is at risk in their bond market, and I know that Japan is at risk. And I'm not talking about a 1929, but I am talking about economic repercussions that can change markets. I'm also super bullish on gold now. I'm seeing some geopolitical things, this whole Russia thing, this what Ukraine did into Russia and some Russian, retaliation. I do not see a peace settlement or much slowing down there. And I think the Iran thing is ugly. If Israel wants to go forward, the only way they can attack them and really do something is nuclear. And would they do that? I hope they don't, but through fear of being a small nation, with 9 million people up against these massive enemies in that area, they just might do it. And if they do that, that opens up Pandora's box. What's that going to do to Bitcoin? What's that going to do to gold, stores of wealth? They're going to skyrocket. Guys, if you didn't watch my precious metals mining, you need to. you need to consider this as another safety valve. Do not be in one instrument only. Don't go out there and say, I got Bitcoin, I'm safe. Hopefully you are, okay? Own a few assets that help you in that risk side. Okay, I'm out of here. Thanks. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Bye for now.